I never meant to tell anyone what happened. I promised myself I would forget it, that silence would protect me from madness. But silence has teeth, and it began to devour my sleep. Night after night, I heard the same whisper return, the whisper that began the night I saw the impossible. I speak now because I made a vow. If breath ever returned to me, I would not die with this buried inside. So this is not a story for entertainment. It is a confession. It is a wound speaking. Some truths burn the soul before they heal it. There are moments that split a life in two, the before and the after. I used to think I understood faith, that the words of Scripture were walls strong enough to hold all mysteries. I prayed, I worked, I smiled in photographs, and underneath it all I carried a quiet exhaustion, a weight that no sermon could lift. Then came the night that undid me. It did not arrive with thunder or vision. It came as stillness. The air thinned, time folded. I felt something draw near, not with footsteps but with awareness, as if the universe itself were leaning close to listen. And in that listening, my name was called, not by sound, but by knowing. I cannot name what approached me. To call it light would be to insult the sun. To call it presence would be too small. It was understanding made visible, compassion given shape. Its gaze pierced through me, and in that instant I saw every thought I had ever hidden, every prayer I had whispered without faith to sustain it. I tried to turn away, but there is no hiding from what sees the soul. And then it revealed something, images moving like breath across eternity. I saw a pattern vast and delicate, a living timeline pulsing with the choices of humankind. I understood without words that every act of mercy hastened the dawn, and every cruelty delayed it. It was the history of hearts, moving toward an hour when love would walk the earth again unveiled. Some truths burn the soul before they heal it. I remember whispering, "Why show me this?" But the question vanished before it reached the air. The answer was already within me. Because to know is to be responsible, to see is to testify, and once you've seen, you owe the truth your voice. I do not expect to be believed. Doubt me if you must. Mock me if you must. But before you turn away, listen to the tremor beneath these words. I have seen what apathy costs. I have seen the sorrow that waits for those who sleep through the hour of awakening. If this story has reached you, it is not by coincidence. There are no accidents in the way light travels. Perhaps your heart was meant to hear this before the silence returns. Some truths burn the soul before they heal it. Do not look away. Stay. Listen. Keep your spirit awake while there is still time to see. Before that night, my days bled together like pages left out in the rain. I woke, I worked, I prayed out of habit more than hope. The rhythm of life was steady, but hollow, like footsteps echoing down an empty hall. I smiled when people expected it, nodded at their small talk, and returned home to the hum of appliances and the soft glow of screens that promised connection but delivered none. I was moving, but not living. The scriptures still sat open on my table, yet the words no longer rose to meet me. They lay flat, and I told myself it was fatigue, the weariness of a soul doing its best. But deep down, I knew I had drifted into a season where faith had become a performance, not a pulse. Sometimes, while driving to work, I would glance at the horizon and feel something tug inside, a quiet ache that said, there must be more than this. Then traffic would close around me, horns would blare, and I'd swallow that ache with the next red light. I was moving but not living. At church I stood with the congregation, singing words about surrender while calculating the week ahead. My hands lifted, my heart stayed folded. It was safer that way. To truly open yourself to the holy is to risk being remade, and I wasn't ready to lose the small order I had built. Yet the nights grew longer, sleep thinned. The air around me felt heavier, as if the ordinary world was holding its breath. Lamps flickered, clocks stopped for half seconds at a time. It wasn't supernatural, it was subtle, but enough to stir an old fear that something unseen was watching the way a teacher watches a distracted student. I remember one evening in particular. Rain pressed against the window, tapping its slow code. I sat in the dark, scrolling through headlines about wars, about storms, about people turning on one another. I told myself the world had always been this way, but the denial rang hollow. Beneath everything, I felt the weight of a question I refused to face. What if the world is winding towards something we no longer have time to prepare for? Still, I pushed it aside. I had bills to pay, errands to run, a future to manage. The spirit whispered, but the schedule shouted louder. I was moving, but not living. Some evenings, on the walk home, I would pass the same streetlight that flickered only when I came near. I told myself it was coincidence, but part of me wondered if grace still followed, even when I didn't want to be found. Inside, a small tremor began, a longing without name, a hunger for whatever I had once known before faith became theory. I began to sense that something, or someone, was approaching the edges of my life, waiting for the moment when I could no longer pretend contentment. I was moving, but not living. And beneath every heartbeat another sound began to echo, faint at first, then clearer each night. He called my name in the dark. At first I thought it was memory, the residue of prayer, but it was more insistent than memory. It carried both warning and promise. It was not the voice of threat, but of love that refuses to let go. Each morning after, I told myself it was imagination. Yet the pull deepened, drawing me toward the unknown that would one day tear the veil between life and eternity. I was moving but not living. He called my name in the dark. That night the whisper became a storm. It came without warning, threading itself through the ordinary, through my pulse, through the breath I took for granted. One heartbeat stuttered, then another. The world tilted. My hands reached for something solid, but found only air. The body falls first. The soul lingers, unwilling to believe the distance that has begun to grow. I remember the floor rushing toward me, yet the sound never arrived. Everything stretched, slowed, turned to stillness. I could feel my heart clawing at the walls of my chest, and then it let go. For a moment, there was terror, the kind that claws from the inside, the kind that makes a person call out to anyone listening. But the fear broke like glass in sunlight. Warmth followed. It didn't come from around me. It rose from within, as if mercy itself had been waiting beneath my skin for this exact moment to surface. I thought dying would be loud. It wasn't. It was quiet, so quiet that even thought could be heard. The air had weight, but the weight was love. It pressed against me, gentle but immovable, and I could no longer tell where I ended, and the silence began. When the world fell silent, eternity began to whisper. Sound returned as a hum, not from machines or walls, but from something vast. It was the vibration of being known. I hovered, above, beside, within the shell I used to call my life. I saw the stillness of my own face and did not panic. The sight carried no horror, only a strange gratitude. How fragile the flesh, and yet how tenderly it is held. Then the edges of the room dissolved. Light seeped in through everything, and with it a pulse, a rhythm I recognized but had forgotten. It was the same pulse that moves tides, that beats behind every living thing. And within it was a voice, not speaking, but revealing. When the world fell silent, eternity began to whisper. The whisper said that time was not what I believed. It was not a line. It was a breath, expanding and contracting in the chest of the eternal. Each of us, a note in that breath. Each heartbeat, a syllable of the same word. I drifted higher, or perhaps deeper. Gravity reversed. The ceiling melted into a horizon of light. Shapes appeared, soft outlines of all I had ever loved, unjudging, waiting. And I realized I was being drawn toward something immense, not to be consumed but to be understood. There was no fear left. The panic of dying had already died. What remained was clarity, the way a lake clears when the storm has passed. I saw the futility of the things I clung to, the small rivalries, the urgent schedules. None of them followed me here. Only truth does. When the world fell silent, eternity began to whisper. The whisper asked nothing, demanded nothing. It simply revealed. It showed me that everything I had called mine had been borrowed light, that love is the only possession we ever truly keep. And then the stillness deepened again. I felt the pull of choice, go on or return. Somewhere far away, a voice was calling my name. It was faint, human, pleading, wrapped in the sound of machines. But another voice, quieter, spoke through the silence within me. Not yet. You are not finished. You will tell what you have seen, not to glorify death, but to awaken life. When the world fell silent, eternity began to whisper. If you feel that chill, the one that reminds you how quickly breath can vanish, do not turn away. Let this story prepare you before your own silence comes. I remember the moment the last thread that tied me to the weight of the world loosened. The body below me grew dim, a shadow within a shadow, and I began to move without moving, drawn by something not ahead or above, but within, a greater vastness calling me home. It was not darkness that met me, but a radiance so alive it seemed to breathe. Every pulse of light carried sound, every sound carried meaning. It was music made of color, color made of song. And within it I felt the warmth of recognition, the way a child feels when a door opens and the scent of home spills through. There are colors that only souls can see. The closer I drifted, the less the word I made sense. What I had called my identity thinned, becoming transparent, until I was nothing but awareness suspended in love. Shapes appeared, not with bodies as I once understood them, but with presence. They shimmered like flame, yet I felt no heat, only welcome. Their very existence was praise. They were not beings apart from the light. They were the light, gathered into song. The air, or whatever held me, was alive. It sang through me, cleansing every thought, every memory still clinging to fear. The song said, "You are known. You are forgiven. You were never alone." There are colors that only souls can see. I remember trying to look down, to find a boundary where heaven ended and creation began. But there was none. The light went on forever, folding into itself like breath inhaled and released by the eternal. And in that rhythm I understood that love is not a feeling, it is the structure of existence. Everything that lives, lives because it is loved. I saw a river of brightness flowing without source or mouth. It was thought, emotion, history, prayer, all things returning to origin. I moved beside it and felt fragments of lives brush past. Laughter, tears, the scent of rain after grief. Each one was a note in the same chord, a proof that even sorrow belongs. There are colors that only souls can see. Guidance came not through command, but through invitation. Something vast and tender drew me deeper, and with each pulse of light understanding grew. I saw that every act of kindness ripples farther than we imagine, and that the smallest cruelty echoes longer than we think. The light did not judge, it revealed, and revelation is its own fire. I felt myself weeping, though there were no tears. The weeping was release, the soul shedding its defenses, its need to explain. What use are explanations in a place where everything is understood before you form the thought? At the edge of that brightness, I sensed others. Not strangers, but remembered essences. Those I had loved, those I had harmed, those who had prayed for me when I could not pray for myself. They did not speak, yet forgiveness radiated from them like warmth from a sun that never sets. And then came stillness again. A calm so complete it was not the absence of sound, but the fullness of peace. It wrapped around me like a robe woven from light and time. I knew I was being led somewhere, toward a presence beyond even this glory, toward the heart of what every hymn tries to describe. There are colors that only souls can see. The radiance deepened until it became form, pure brightness condensing into a center of unbearable beauty. And I knew, without words, that I was approaching the one who had called my name in the dark. I wanted to flee and to kneel all at once. The holiness was too vast for the smallness I still carried, yet the closer I came, the more that smallness dissolved. There are colors that only souls can see. If I could bring you one fragment of that light, one thread of that sound, it would undo every wall you've built between yourself and love. Words cannot hold it. Even now, memory falters under its weight. But I tell you this because I vowed I would, because it was given not for me to hoard, but for me to witness. And as I drifted into the center of that brightness, everything I had feared became meaningless. Only one truth remained, echoing through the radiance like a heartbeat older than time. Love is all that survives the crossing. There are colors that only souls can see. From the center of the radiance, a form began to take shape, not stepping forward, but gathering itself from the light as if the light desired a face. It was neither male nor female, neither old nor young, and yet it carried the ache of every age. The brightness condensed into eyes, and in those eyes I saw galaxies turning like prayer wheels. No words came, but understanding filled the space between us. Thought itself became language, emotion became sentence. It spoke without sound, and I received without effort. It radiated wisdom, not menace. Its presence stilled every remaining tremor of fear. I felt like a child again, newly aware that the universe was not a void, but a mind that had never stopped thinking of me. I wanted to ask who it was, what it was, but the question dissolved before forming. Its answer came as a wave of light through my chest. You have known me by many names. All of them are pieces of the same fire. And then, with a gentleness that broke me open, it let the name of Jesus form within the light. Not spoken, but revealed. The syllables did not sound. They unfolded, and everything within the realm bowed toward that unfolding. The light itself leaned in reverence, the colors dimming as though in holy hush. Even creation itself groans for his return. I felt my soul bow too, not from command but from recognition. Every particle of me understood that all existence orbits that one love. The galaxies I'd glimpsed in the being's eyes turned slower, waiting, listening. It showed me scenes, not visions to predict, but memories of heaven watching the world. I saw the earth spinning in that vastness, luminous yet wounded, its oceans trembling with both beauty and sorrow. Every storm, every child's cry, every act of mercy rose from it as sound, blending into the same yearning chord. Even creation itself groans for his return. The being's light pulsed with grief and hope in equal measure. I felt that both belonged to God, that even divine patience carries ache. Another wave of thought passed through me. What you call the end is not destruction. It is reunion. The fire that burns the chaff is the same flame that refines the heart. Its brightness grew, flooding me with images. Acts of cruelty, acts of tenderness, humanity rising and falling through ages, and always a steady current of mercy running beneath. No corner of history had been without it. We simply stopped listening. Even creation itself groans for his return. I wanted to speak, to promise that I would listen now, that I would never forget. But the being already knew. It looked at me, or rather through me, with compassion so complete that apology was unnecessary. The light changed again, deepening into gold. The being extended something, not a hand, but a gesture of inclusion, and I felt my entire memory open, every choice and regret illuminated. Yet no condemnation came, only the awareness that all things, once confessed to love, are turned into light. Even creation itself groans for his return. The presence leaned closer, not in distance, but in essence. Within that nearness came a single truth. Everything that exists longs to be reconciled, even the stars. Redemption is not a human story. It is the breath of the cosmos. Then, as gently as it had come, the radiance began to recede, not withdrawing, but making space, as though it trusted me to carry what it had given. Its final gift was silence, heavy with promise, and one last echo of thought that settled into my spirit like seed. You will remember this when the noise of earth returns. Speak of it. Tell them that the fire they fear is the love they've forgotten. Even creation itself groans for his return. Before you dismiss this as imagination, remember, Those who turn away from revelation remain blind when truth appears again. Keep watching, keep listening. Disbelief will not shelter you when the silence opens once more. The light that had filled me did not fade. It began to move, folding into shapes like thoughts taking form. I was shown a sweep of existence so vast that language cannot frame it. It was not the future measured in years. It was the unveiling of hearts. Every pulse of light was a decision, every shadow a hesitation. The timeline stretched before me, not as history, but as the beating body of humanity itself. The clock of heaven does not measure hours, it measures obedience. I saw the moments when compassion burned bright and when it flickered low. Each act of mercy sent ripples through the fabric of being. Each act of cruelty dimmed a constellation. Nations rose and fell, not upon borders, but upon conscience. Technology gleamed like a mirror reflecting both brilliance and blindness. Some reached through it for connection, others for control. Both currents flowed together, and the light trembled between them, waiting for our choice. The clock of heaven does not measure hours, it measures obedience. I watched as faith grew thin in some hearts, replaced by the noise of self. Yet beneath the din, mercy kept whispering. In dark cities, small fires burned. People still kind to strangers, still praying though unsure who heard. The fires linked, unseen, and began to map the world with quiet radiance. I saw the earth itself sigh, as if weary of our forgetting. Rivers ran heavy with both beauty and burden, mountains bowed under smoke. Yet within that ache, life persisted. Even pain became prayer. Creation was not angry, it was pleading. The clock of heaven does not measure hours, it measures obedience. Then came a vision of awakening. Hearts that had slept for lifetimes began to stir. Children spoke truths their elders had silenced. Artists painted in light. Scientists wept over the elegance of order. Across every language, one longing rose like dawn, to return not to a place but to the original honesty of being known and loved. Still, deception threaded through the awakening. Voices promised power without sacrifice, peace without humility. Many followed, dazzled by the ease of it. The light dimmed again, then rallied wherever someone remembered grace. The clock of heaven does not measure hours, it measures obedience. I wanted to cry out, to warn them, but the vision held me silent. It showed me that no warning is complete unless it is lived. What saves the world is not information, it is transformation. One heart turned toward compassion outweighs 1,000 arguments about truth. The light widened. I saw crowds standing at a threshold, each person carrying a lantern. Some lanterns blazed, others barely glowed. A wind began to rise, not to extinguish, but to test. Those who had tended their flames with patience shone brighter. Those who had neglected them found only smoke. Yet even then, new sparks leapt from the faithful to the faint, and hope spread again. The clock of heaven does not measure hours, it measures obedience. And then I saw a moment beyond moments, a stillness before a great unveiling. The whole creation leaned forward, waiting. The light that had guided me pulsed once more, and a question filled the air, weightless yet undeniable. When love returns in fullness, will there be light left on earth to recognize it? The question was not accusation, it was invitation. I felt it settle in me like a seed, alive, asking to be tended. The clock of heaven does not measure hours, it measures obedience. When the vision began to fade, I begged to remember it all. I feared the noise of the world would drown this clarity. And in that fear came the final whisper. Do not remember every image. Remember the ache. It will guide you back when you forget. The light dimmed to a soft hum, and I knew the revelation had ended. But its echo remains, even now, each time my heart keeps time with mercy's rhythm, each time obedience outweighs delay. The clock of heaven does not measure hours, it measures obedience. When the vision released its grip, I felt as though I had fallen into a silence that stretched beyond sound. The radiance that had shown me so much began to soften, drawing back like tide from shore. But the ache it left behind did not fade. It became heartbeat. It became command. At first I thought I was alone again, drifting in the hollow between worlds. Then a new light rose, not from beyond, but from below. The earth, distant and blue, began to glow as if dawn were rising from within it. Cities that once pulsed with unrest shimmered like embers awakening under ash. Rivers glimmered, clean and endless. I saw faces turned upward, not in fear, but in remembrance. They were beginning to know what they had always been. They will remember who they were made to be. The light spread through every nation, not through conquest, but through recognition. People who had nothing shared what little they held. Those who had everything began to release it. Old enemies touched foreheads and wept. The air itself seemed lighter, as though creation had exhaled after holding its breath for centuries. I saw children standing in fields, their hands lifted toward the wind. Words spilled from them, simple and clear, carrying wisdom their elders had forgotten. They spoke not of punishment, but of renewal. Their laughter stitched torn lands together. The hungry were fed, the lonely were seen. The sick found comfort in touch that no longer feared contagion. They will remember who they were made to be. Light returned to the cities, not the harsh glare of commerce, but a quiet illumination. Windows glowed with prayer, streets hummed with songs that had no composer. Technology, once the tool of isolation, became the bridge of mercy. Across screens and wires came voices reading psalms of compassion. The very codes of the world were rewritten in kindness. Even the earth seemed to heal. Trees, long silenced, lifted their crowns higher. Oceans sang, the sky cleared, and stars appeared in places that had known only haze. Humanity had not conquered nature, it had learned to listen. The separation between the sacred and the ordinary dissolved. Work became worship, breath became hymn. They will remember who they were made to be. And among the multitude, I saw faces shining, ordinary people, radiant with a steady fire. They were not exempt from pain, but they were unbroken by it. Their faith had become gravity, holding the world together. Each one bore a quiet joy, and wherever they walked, shadows shortened. They were the new stewards of light, though they called themselves by no title. Then I saw the old ones, the weary souls who had nearly given up. They stood at the edges of this dawn, hesitant. But grace, patient and unashamed, reached for them. It whispered that it was never too late to turn, that even the faintest flicker could ignite again. And one by one they stepped forward. They will remember who they were made to be. Tears gathered, not of grief, but of relief. I understood that heaven's promise was never about escape, but about restoration. The world was not ending, it was remembering. The light did not fall from above, it rose from within, awakened by those who chose love over apathy. And for a moment everything shimmered as it must have on the first day, pure, unashamed, belonging. If your spirit stirs while hearing this, it means grace is still calling you. Share this light before it fades from your screen and from your soul. Carry it to someone who has forgotten how to hope. Let them see in your eyes that redemption is not distant. It is already unfolding wherever kindness dares to endure. They will remember who they were made to be. The vision began to fade again, not in despair but in fulfillment. The earth receded, still glowing, still alive with possibility. I knew then that what I had been shown was not inevitability, but invitation. The awakening is always waiting. Every moment we choose compassion, the light quickens. Every time we forgive, another dawn begins. They will remember who they were made to be. When the light released me, it felt like falling through memory. The vastness that had held me so gently receded, and weight returned. A pressure, a heartbeat, a body. I opened my eyes to the sound of machines, the taste of metal, the ordinary smell of air that had forgotten how to sing. The world was the same, and yet it was not. For a time, I could not speak. The tongue that had tasted eternity now struggled with words too small to contain it. The light still pulsed behind my eyes, but no one could see it. I was awake, yet half elsewhere. The nurses called it recovery. I called it exile. Truth is heavy when carried alone. Days bled into nights. Every face I met was familiar and foreign. Friends asked questions in the language of curiosity, not hunger. They wanted proof, not presence. I tried to describe the vision, the warmth, the call, but each syllable felt like pouring sunlight into a jar. I saw disbelief harden their eyes, the polite smile that says, "You should rest more." I learned silence again, but this silence was different. It was not peace. It was resistance. Every time I held my tongue, the truth inside pressed harder, aching to be born. It was a fire that refused containment. Truth is heavy when carried alone. Sleep became uneasy. Each night, the edge between worlds thinned. In dreams, the river of light returned, the same hum that had filled the space beyond breath. I would wake at 3 a.m. with my chest burning, the echo of the refrain still there. They will remember who they were made to be. The echo demanded action, but I did not know what to do with it. I wrote in secret. I filled notebooks with fragments of the revelation, sketches of light, lines of prayer, maps of mercy. I hid them in drawers, ashamed of their tenderness. How do you explain to a world obsessed with noise that silence is the loudest message of all? Truth is heavy when carried alone. When I finally spoke publicly, the reaction came swift and sharp. Some called it delusion, others heresy. A few listened and wept quietly, but most turned away. The more I told the story, the lonelier it became. The world prefers spectacle to surrender. They wanted predictions, not repentance, wonders, not awakening. Still, I kept speaking. I remembered the vow I had made in the light, that if breath returned to me, I would use it for truth. Some nights I questioned that vow. Was I protecting the sacred or merely exposing it to ridicule? Yet each time doubt rose, another memory answered. The warmth, the eyes of the being woven from light, the tenderness that asked nothing but faithfulness. Truth is heavy when carried alone. The resistance deepened, not only from others, but from the unseen. The air around me would thicken with unease when I prayed. Lights flickered, devices failed, and a coldness settled whenever I tried to write about the revelation. I do not call it darkness. It was simply the absence of listening. The world hums with distractions that fear stillness. But in the quiet hours, when even the hum retreated, I felt the other world near again. Not as vision, but as presence. It waited, not to rescue, but to remind. The whisper would come, "Return to the fire." Each time, the phrase burned through my resistance, urging me to remember that revelation is not a possession, but a responsibility. Truth is heavy when carried alone, so I began to walk differently. I looked longer at faces in the street, searching for the faint shimmer that says a soul is awake. Sometimes I saw it, a spark behind the eyes of a stranger, the same light that had once engulfed me, and for a heartbeat, the weight lifted. I was not alone after all. The light was multiplying quietly, invisibly. Still, the cost remained. Relationships faded. The ordinary rhythm of life no longer fit. I became both witness and wanderer, haunted by what I had seen, sustained by what I could not forget. The fire within no longer consumed, it refined. Every loss became offering, every misunderstanding a prayer for patience. Truth is heavy when carried alone. Sometimes, in the dim hours before dawn, I return to the place where I fell, the same room, the same quiet. I close my eyes and listen. The hum is faint now, but it is there, threaded through the world like breath. And I whisper to it what I whispered in the light. I am still listening. I am still obedient. I will not let the noise drown the memory of fire. Truth is heavy when carried alone, but it is still light, and I will carry it until the silence breaks again. The fire within me does not rest now. It has become voice, and that voice turns toward you. I speak not to frighten, but to awaken. The same light that once carried me beyond breath still flickers in this world, hidden beneath noise and comfort. Yet I feel the pressure of something approaching, the slow, deliberate pull of time tightening around all things. Deception grows like ivy. It wraps itself in good intentions, in beautiful language, in progress and convenience. It does not shout. It hums softly until you forget the sound of truth. You will see it everywhere, in the way compassion becomes performance, in the way mercy is traded for opinion, in the way faith is turned into spectacle. Darkness no longer hides. It dresses itself in light and asks for applause. You were chosen to hear this. The awakening I was shown was not guaranteed. It was invitation. Every heart has been given a choice, to burn with love or to dim beneath indifference. And the decision is not made once, it is made each morning, with every word, every silence, every glance that either wounds or heals. I have learned that vigilance is not fear, it is tenderness. It is the willingness to guard what is sacred in a world that profits from forgetting. And repentance is not punishment, it is return. It is the act of walking back toward the fire that once called your name. You were chosen to hear this. Listen carefully. Comfort will soon become the heaviest chain. Those who cling to it will sink when the currents change. But those who live awake, who keep their lamps trimmed, who love even when it costs them, will rise with the dawn of mercy that cannot be stopped. If your heart stirs while hearing this, it is not my voice you are responding to. It is memory. It is the echo of the first time love called you by name. It is the same whisper that met me in the light and sent me back here to speak. You were chosen to hear this. Do not waste the appointment. Do not bury the moment beneath distraction. Let conviction do its holy work. Let the ache drive you toward compassion. The world is trembling, not ending, it is being remade. Every act of kindness hastens the birth of what is coming. Every cruelty delays it. If you feel the fire, guard it, feed it, become it. And when others mock you, when they call your devotion strange, remember that faith has always been misunderstood by those who fear surrender. The road of love is narrow because it demands the whole heart. You were chosen to hear this. Don't be the one who heard and walked away unchanged. Keep watch, keep love. Let every breath be preparation. And when the world tries to lull you back to sleep, return to the fire. Return to the fire. Return to the fire. There is a silence that follows every revelation, a silence so deep it feels alive, watching, listening, waiting to see what you will do with what you have seen. I live inside that silence now. Each breath feels like a prayer I did not know I knew. Every sound, the wind against glass, the ticking of a clock, even the rhythm of my own pulse, reminds me that time itself is mercy, and mercy is the quiet thread holding the world together. You were brought here to remember. When I close my eyes, I still see the shimmer, the outline of light that is not light, not as a vision anymore, but as an imprint beneath thought. It burns softly, like a candle behind the ribs, illuminating everything that tries to hide in shadow. I cannot escape it, nor would I want to. It is my reminder. The vow keeps breathing through me. Every word I speak, every silence I hold, is a continuation of that promise. To tell what I was shown, to become what I was called to become. The truth must be told, and yet truth is never comfortable. It does not flatter, it does not soothe, it refines. It cuts through false peace, strips away illusion, leaves you trembling and clean. There are days I wish I could forget, days when I long for ignorance again, when the noise of the world seemed enough. But once you have seen the eternal from within the temporary, you can no longer pretend that distraction is life. The world must be shaken before it can be restored. I walk through the world now like someone listening to two songs at once, the one everyone hears, the hum of routine, the chatter of screens, the endless applause for emptiness, and the one few still remember, the low, steady hymn of creation calling everything back to its maker. And I realize they are growing louder at the same time, one born of restlessness, the other of redemption. The noise will rise, yes, but so will the music of the returning. Keep speaking. Sometimes I feel the ache of separation, as if the soul of the world itself is stretched thin, reaching for the holy. In that ache, I recognize His mercy. The pain is not punishment, it is labor. The earth is giving birth to a new remembrance, and every heart that still longs for goodness is part of that labor. Every tear shed in repentance waters the soil of restoration. Every whisper of forgiveness shifts the future closer to light. They were chosen. You were chosen. I think of you, listening now, maybe in the dim hours of night, maybe alone in your room, maybe with doubt gnawing at your chest. And I want you to know you are not hearing this by chance. Something ancient and tender has guided your attention here, not to terrify you, but to awaken you, because you carry a spark of the same fire that once called my name in the dark. The time is now. Choose. I have seen what happens when souls awaken. They become mirrors, reflecting eternity through their eyes. They become bridges for mercy to cross into the world again. They become reminders that love is not theory. It is warfare, silent and holy. And though the battle seems invisible, its effects are everywhere, in kindness that refuses to die, in truth that keeps resurfacing even after being buried. You were brought here to remember, and so I tell you again, return to the fire. Return to the Gospels, not as pages, but as breath. Return to the truth that once felt too costly to keep, and keep it anyway. Return to Christ, not as a symbol, but as the living pulse of love that refuses extinction. He is still calling even now. He is still walking through the ruins of our forgetting, whispering the same invitation he gave at the beginning. Follow me. Keep speaking. Keep listening. Keep believing. Because the hour is late, but mercy is still awake. And when the veil lifts, and it will, you will understand why every wound was allowed, why every silence mattered, why every act of love was a seed planted for the world to come. When the veil lifts, there is no going back. So let this be my final vow, to carry the fire until it carries me, to keep speaking until my breath becomes prayer, to remember and to remind. You were brought here to remember. The truth must be told. The time is now. Choose. When the veil lifts, there is no going back.